Lindsay Haslett, you're coming very close to the end of your wardenship of this college. You're about to retire, about to go to England. And I'd like you just to think back across 15 years now to what your first impressions of this school were before, in fact, you came, when you were thinking of applying for the job.
Yes, if I remember rightly, the position was advertised just before Christmas. At least this is where I saw it first anyway, in the Times Educational Supplement in the UK. It was around the 18th of December, which it struck me at the time was quite an odd time to advertise, because of course people are beginning to prepare for Christmas and think about the break. But I saw it, and I suppose a number of factors occurred to me. First of all, I was at that time seriously considering moving to headship. I had been a deputy headmaster for 5 years, and for the previous year had been acting headmaster in the school where I was working in Cambridgeshire, standing in for the normal headmaster. So I was looking around for jobs, hence looking at the Times Educational Supplement. St Columba's resonated with me for a number of reasons. I had been here first as a young boy. I imagine probably in the late 60s or early 70s to play a cricket match when I had been a pupil at Foyle College. So I had vague recollections of that. The advertisement, when it appeared, also pointed out that the current warden, Tim Macy, at that time, was in membership of the Headmasters' Conference. And for me, this was something that resonated quite considerably. I've always seen the Headmasters' Conference and its members as being people of quality, integrity, schools in membership of the organisation, I believe, have a quality about them, and that attracted me. I was only applying, if you like, for headships at that time, to schools whose headmasters or headmistresses were in membership of HMC. So that was a further factor. And then, of course, finally, I'm an Irishman. And although I had left Ireland at the age of 18 to go to university in England, and had subsequently worked there for my entire career, I've always felt Irish at heart. And the idea of coming to work in a school in Ireland and in Dublin, which is an attractive European city, appealed to me. I consulted my wife. She was keen on the idea as well. The idea of moving to Dublin appealed to her. I didn't consult my children. They were young at the time, 11 and 9, and in fact subsequently, when I had to break the news to them that we were in fact moving to Dublin, there were a few tears, because of course they were leaving their friends behind and all of that. But children, I've always believed, are adaptable and capable of overcoming those kinds of feelings. And Sophie and Kate came here, subsequently spent 7 years each of them here. The school served them well, they served the school well, I think, and they were very happy here. So no regrets, certainly. That was the initial attraction, I suppose.
So you're appointed warden by the fellows, and then you must have taken a little time to assess the school. And can you go back now over what you thought at the time needed improvement? And the second part of this question is what you thought, importantly, needed to be preserved in the school.
Well, again, casting my mind back, I came here in the winter, early spring, I suppose, on 3 occasions before I was appointed to be interviewed by different groups of fellows each time. And I should say, because I'd like it to go on the record actually, that I had been interviewed for a number of positions over the years, including deputy headships, by quite formidable panels of people in quite sometimes intimidating circumstances. And one of the things that struck me hugely when I came for interview at St Columba's was the warmth of the people who were interviewing me. And I thought that reflected terribly well on the school, because I had previously been for interviews with certain panels which had been anything but. And I'd find myself coming out of those interviews thinking, well, if I was appointed here, would I really want to work for people like this? So, you know, I had an opportunity to see a little bit of the school before I was appointed. I remember the then bursar, John Bailey, took me around. Now, he didn't give me the most exhaustive of tours. In fact, I don't think I saw any dormitories or any boarding houses at that time. But nonetheless, it did give me an idea of the school and its state at the time. As you say, I came then in September 2001, and I wanted to get as familiar with the place as quickly as possible. And it was important to get into every single building, every single classroom, every single boarding house to see what needed doing. So infrastructurally and fabric-wise, I felt very, very quickly that St. Columba's was a school which really did need refurbishing, modernising, cleaning up, and that was my immediate priority. There were other things in the school which were particularly strong, and I think, if I recall rightly, you asked me to say what I thought needed preserving. Clearly, I wouldn't have been here in the first place if I hadn't felt that the school had a warmth and a sense of welcoming about it. And I had met some staff, I had met the previous warden, I had met some of the pupils. When I had come for interview, I think I had sat down with the outgoing prefect body and had a chat to them. All of these things indicated to me that this was a school where there was a sense of belonging and where people felt some ownership of the place and were fiercely loyal to it, but in a quiet, sort of understated, not a way with bravado or boasting. It was just quiet and understated. And for me, therefore, you know, to try to summarize, buildings, fixtures needed modernizing, upgrading. People, attitudes, ethos needed preserving. And from what I could tell at an early stage, that also, of course, applied to the teaching staff, who were very strong, very loyal also, in many cases long-serving, very knowledgeable about the school, very dedicated to it. So these were the things that had to be preserved, I would say, in my mind from an early start. And finally, I would say, you know, that this stretches also beyond the teaching staff to the ancillary staff. You can't be involved at St. Columba's and not get to know the people who work around the place. The secretaries, the cleaners, the linen ladies, the laundry ladies, the maintenance people, the gardener, all of these people are friendly, welcoming, but also see their work here as something special to which they're attracted and very loyal. That struck me very strongly as something that we needed to build on, actually, even, and strengthen and publicise, promulgate, if you like, during my wardenship.
So you were appointed by the Fellows to become warden, and then you presumably took little time to assess the college, what you thought needed improvement, and then also what you thought needed preserving. So can you take me through those ideas?
Every project is important, obviously, and I've been very pleased and proud of what we've been able to achieve at St. Columba's over the past 15 years, probably mostly in the first 8 to 10 years I was here when times were better, and in terms of fundraising and that sort of thing, it was easier to achieve. Bank loans were probably easier to achieve also in the Celtic Tiger years. But as I've said on a number of occasions, I'm pleased that we made hay while the sun shone on the country and on the economy, because of course from 2008 onwards, the second period, times were much harsher, and it would have been more difficult to do so many building projects at that time. I am very pleased with what has been achieved at St. Columba's, and all of the different projects have a part in that, whether it's a staff house or a classroom or a boarding house or a dining hall or a music school, all of these different things I think were important. If I had to, I always like to answer a question directly if I can. And if I had to pick one, and it might surprise you a little bit, I probably would go with the first major one, which was the Grange building. And the reason I would plump for that is that it answered so many of the early problems, as I saw them, for the school in re-accommodating 104 pupils, 52 boys, 52 girls, accommodating 4 members of staff, providing 4 new classrooms, providing common rooms, changing rooms. I felt that this was essential in my early days because, as I've said in the past, it was quite difficult to show prospective parents the school and to show them into dormitories, which frankly they were appalled by. And it made it very, very difficult to persuade them to pay for their children to come to what they perceived as, and probably correctly, the most expensive school in Ireland, to live in their view, in some cases, squalor. That's how they saw it. So we urgently needed some new building quickly. And the Grange building, as it's become known since then, answered all of that. Incidentally, I would say that you have been instrumental, of course, in recent weeks in seeing the making of a new drone film of the college, a film using drone technology, which shows our buildings and location and setting off to best advantage. And one of the things that strikes me, and I'm really pleased about in that film, is the aerial shot of the Grange building, because I think that shot from above, where you look down on the roof and you see the quadrangle in the middle, which is very much in keeping with the tradition at St. Columba's, having a number of quads around it. I think that film really shows the scope of the Grange building, and indeed, although it was relatively cheaply built, with every decoration, every embellishment adding to the cost, I think it stands up as being in keeping with the architecture of the school. Having the quadrangle, there's a Gothic quality to the towers, the 2 towers, which tie in with the with other buildings around the place, and on the whole, I felt it was successful, as with any building project, and all of the building projects we undertook over the last 15 years had their difficulties with builders. This is inevitable. There were frustrations at first with some of the aspects of the building functionally, but I'm very pleased with it. Having said that, the Girdham Music School, the change to the buttery and the addition of the second dining hall, the upgrading of Stack Allen in the Argyle building, these were all very satisfactory things, and I hope will stand the school in good stead over the years ahead and for many years ahead.
You mentioned earlier that you worked as a deputy head before this, and you're a housemaster in another school and teacher in French in your time too. So could you just make an assessment of the similarities and differences between this school and the other schools you have worked in the past?
Interesting. I worked principally in 3 schools in my career before coming here, and although 2 of those, a majority if you like, were day schools, I had worked in a boarding school for a time, which was really not dissimilar to St. Columba's, and I had worked for significantly longer in that one school than I had in the day schools. The day schools, 2 years at the beginning of my career in a state grammar school, 5 years in an independent day school then in Cambridgeshire as deputy, and then in the middle a period of 12-13 years when I was at Rentham in Gloucestershire. Rentham, when I first went there in 1985, was and is, I believe, a fantastic school, very similar in size to St. Columba's, and that for me was an attraction in coming here. I like small schools. I do like schools where there is a sense of the if you like, the corporate school identity being stronger than the house identity, which I think you can sometimes get in big public schools in England, where being at a particular school is less important than what house you're in. I liked the size of Rentham. I do like the size of St. Columba's. I know we're committed to keeping the school small, even though it may grow in number slightly in the coming years. So that was certainly a similarity. I think boarding schools also, I have to say, I didn't go to a boarding school myself. I went to a day school. But really, 3/4 of my teaching career has been spent in boarding schools. And although they're really quite demanding places to work because they're quite relentless, 7 days a week, your weekends are effectively non-existent. I think the compensations for all of that are the way in which you get to know children, the way in which you get to know your colleagues. These, for me, are great attractions. And therefore, that is the principal similarity. I would say size, ethos, collegiality, togetherness, community, all of these kinds of key words, I think, for me, are very important, at any rate, in career terms.
And as you think now about the last 15 years, could you identify what you think is the particular strength of this school, and a strength which will last into the future?
I hope it's clear from what I say that the central strength, the most important thing about St. Columba's is its sense of togetherness and community. I didn't invent this, don't get me wrong. This was here, this has been here for decades, over a century, nearly 2 centuries, I imagine. There's always, it seems to me, been this really kind of strong bond. But I felt these things need to be said again and again and again. And it's only when you've repeated them, perhaps ad nauseum in the eyes of the pupils and the staff, that the idea begins really to percolate through to the wider body of the school, to your parents, to your governors, to your colleagues, to your pupils, to your past pupils. I wanted to get this message out that this is what is central to the school, this is what's most important, and I wanted everyone to be saying this about the school, because I genuinely believe this is the most important thing. There are other more passing, ephemeral kinds of things which I hope will persist, like academic standards. I think are very, very high. I think the quality of the teaching staff here is very, very high. I think the schedule that the children have here, these are really important things. The busyness of being a Columban, the activity that takes place here on a daily basis by staff and pupils, I think is extraordinary over a 7-day period. And just as you said, I'm beginning to pack up and beginning to think about moving, and inevitably when you do this, you start to look back a little bit. And yesterday I was just looking at some of the films which we have on the college website, revealing aspects of the college, and I hadn't had a chance to see an interview which was done with one of our pupils, by one of our pupils, until yesterday. An 11-12 minute interview of a sixth former by another sixth former, talking about his time here. And for me, it was a real joy to hear him saying exactly what I would wish him to say about the school and its strengths, without any prompt whatsoever from anyone. Talking about this sense of busyness, of happiness, of togetherness, of belonging, of developing self-confidence, and feeling part of something bigger than yourself, but crucially feeling a formative part of it and a contributory part of it. That for me was very heartwarming.
Just two more questions. First of all, no one can achieve everything they want to do in their job. So is there any unfinished business that you would like to see completed in the coming years in the college?
In answer to that, I would certainly want to say that Warden Babayer, who will be taking over from me in a few weeks' time, will no doubt have ideas of what he wants to do, and quite rightly so. I hope I've said in recent weeks when I've been addressing various audiences that things are never finished. There is always more to do. And it's a question which I'm sometimes asked by quite astute parents, I suppose, you know, prospective parents. What are your plans here for the next 5 years? I suppose, you know, the first thing inevitably is something which has already begun, but which I won't see concluded, and that is the refurbishment of the science building, which is currently taking place and which has only been ongoing for the last 4 or 5 weeks, I suppose now. And that will be concluded in about 6 months' time, all being well. And I think it will give the school a first-class facility, and a much-needed one, because the building, I think, was erected in the early 70s and has been largely untouched since then. So that is something which certainly has to be concluded. I'd love to think that academic standards would be maintained and even improved. I believe in my heart of hearts that children and indeed teachers respond well to high standards and the cultivation of high standards. I think it gives everyone a lift and a fillip when they see that these things are good. So that certainly is something which needs to be improved. We still need to do an awful lot to the fabric of the place. Although almost all teachers here have their own classroom in which they're based, not all do, and that is wrong. I think every teacher should have his or her own particular room which can be decorated and configured in accordance with his or her wishes. So we need some additional classrooms, and we need probably some new classrooms to replace some of the older ones here which aren't as attractive. So there are still things to do on the building front, and that probably is what's most important. What has to be protected and preserved is the quality of pupil that we have here and the quality of teacher. That is something which we cannot take for granted. We absolutely must make sure that we have the very best people. And by very best, I don't mean most able. I mean people who want to be here and who will contribute to the project, to coin a phrase.
And finally, what do you think in your retirement you will really miss about this place?
To pick a single highlight would be very difficult. You know, there were events in the college which gave me a great deal of pleasure. It was an honour to welcome President McAleese to St Columba's in 2003. She was not the first Irish president to visit the school. Many of her predecessors had been here before, and I very much hope that the current president will be visiting us in the next couple of years also. So that was a wonderful event, I thought, for the school. There have been others, but for me the abiding memory will always be of the pupils I've met here and the colleagues I've met here. And I know that this can sound trite and something which is just wheeled out, but I said in a speech I gave last week that of all the common rooms I've worked in, the one in St Columba's genuinely is the most impressive from every point of view. We have wonderful teachers here. Although, as in any common room, you occasionally get spats between people and little cliques can develop, it's always struck me that at St Columba's the staff are very united. There's a great sense of loyalty to one another here, but there's a great deal of friendship as well. And I think this comes from living and working side by side. So I will miss my colleagues, many of whom I hope to see still in retirement, not just when I come back to St. Columba's, but I hope will come to see Marie and me in our new home. And pupils, of course. There have been some wonderful people here, and I particularly enjoy, understandably I hope, having been to some old Columban reunions where the attendance has been primarily of people who've been in the college in my time here, and therefore whom I know. And I'm thinking about the London parties, in recent years, the German parties. These have brought people back to these events who I've known during their time here, and I very much look forward to attending those in the future. So for me, it's that sense of togetherness and that sense of belonging, that sense of being part of something, being involved in a communal project of people pulling together to achieve the best for something which is bigger and better than all of us, which is the college. We've been here almost 175 years as a school. I've been here 15 years. It's nothing when all's said and done. Wardens come and go, as a politician famously said, or an interviewer famously said to a Secretary of State in the UK a few years back, and institutions remain. And it's my hope that I have been able to hand the college over in a fairly good state, and now I want to see my successor taking that on and adding to it, because it's all about the school in the end rather than the people in it. Collectively, the people in it make it what it is, but it's the institution which must prosper and flourish and be successful.
Warden Haslett, thank you very much.
Thank you.